So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Brexit damage as big as COVID, claims the OBR, and they're predicting 5 years before incomes recover. So I found this quite interesting. Some of the statements the dude from the OBR made was they're a bit bold, but some of them seem decent. So the impact of Brexit on the UK economy is on the same magnitude as the pandemic and the energy crisis, the chairman of the OBR has said. In a grim assessment, Richard Hughes also warned that it would take 5 years before people's spending powers recover to pre-coronavirus levels. Britain's GDP will be 4% smaller than if the country had stayed in the EU, the head of the government's fiscal watchdog confirmed on Sunday, and boy, do we need that money now. And, that pre-pandemic spending power was not great. We've seen over a decade of wage stagnation. Different think tanks saying this isn't normal to see this level of wage stagnation over a set period. Especially for public sector workers who have had consistent, effective wage cuts, apart from MPs, of course. It's funny that when the Tories get quizzed on the economic impacts of Brexit, they keep saying things like people had a choice. People were not told they were going to be poorer. We can argue people should have known better, and they should have done. I won't dispute that. But for us to take this long to get back to a position that was not great is a disaster. I wonder if the OBR have factored in things like seasonal food shortages, like we saw at the start of the year, and higher interest rates. We still don't know if the Bank of England will stop raising interest rates, seeing as they're run by a bunch of clowns. Asked how much stronger the economy would have been without Brexit, he told the BBC, says the person from the OBR, he said, quote, "We think that in the long run, Brexit reduces our overall output by around 4% compared to what if we had remained in the EU," end quote. We're talking about losses well into the billions here, tens of billions, lost tax revenue, productivity, and general living standards. The UK is not seen as a safe bet anymore. My other concern is that for the economy to grow, people need disposable income, and I think that's something the Tories fail to understand. They will struggle to grow a houseplant. I just wonder how the OBR got this 4% figure. The OBR first predicted a 4% long-term hit to GDP in 2021. The chairman has been reluctant to be drawn into assessing the seriousness of the damage from Britain's exit from the bloc. Grilled by host Laura Kuenssberg on the scale of the harm done, Mr. Hughes said, quote, "I've struggled to put it into any kind of sensible context. It's a shock to the UK economy of the order of magnitude to other shocks that we've seen from the pandemic, from the energy crisis," end quote. And it's rare for Laura Kuenssberg to grill anyone. I guess the OBR person was just reaching for potential comparison points. And I think Brexit has been way worse than the energy crisis. Comparing it to the pandemic, I think makes more sense. But we still have not seen the final impacts of Brexit. Not really. We still have to wait for the end of the access for EU traders using UK clearing houses and other financial services. That's when we should see the full scale of the problems. But that won't be until summer 2025, I think. I do think the OBR should be a bit more careful of the comparisons they use. The energy crisis has been really bad, but would have been a lot worse without the government cap on household prices. The energy prices are really bad right now, and the Tories should have done a lot more. But I think the Brexit impact has been far greater than the energy crisis. The ones that have struggled the most from the energy crisis are businesses that don't have the price cap, or didn't have it, as well as households. COVID seems like a more apt comparison, in my opinion. The OBR chief said the country is undergoing the, quote, "biggest squeeze on living standards," end quote, on record. He said, quote, "But we do expect as we get past this year and we go into the next 3 or 4 years that real income start to recover," end quote. So he's saying by around, 2027, which will be way beyond the general election. I think if people are more aware of this, then we might see people who will be more against the Tories. The question is, can Labour convince those people that they can speed up the process of getting back to pre-pandemic kind of disposable income levels, or will they play the same game the Tories are, which is there's not much we can do? The OBR guy added, quote, "But it's still the case that people's spending power doesn't get back to the level it was before the pandemic, even after 5 years, even by the time we get to the late 2020s," end quote. And it's wild that it keeps taking the UK, nearly a decade, near the decade mark to get over an economic crash, when it does not seem to take that long for other G7 members or developed countries. I really don't understand why people just don't want things to be better. I mean, imagine saying this sort of stuff in France. You'd get a riot quicker than you can buy a baguette from the local bakery. But England, we just kind of accept it. It's sad. Under Theresa May, it took around, under the Tories, it took around 10 years to get over the Great Recession. And even then, it wasn't as good as it was pre-recession in terms of spending power. But, we see this from this kind of current economic problems with Brexit, COVID, the energy crisis, etc. It's going to take us potentially 10 years to get over that. Mr. Hughes said economic growth had been held back because of, quote, supply constraints, end quote, pointing to labour shortages and an investment slump. He said, quote, we've lost around 500,000 people from the labour force. We've seen stagnant investment since 2016, and our productivity has slowed down dramatically since the financial crisis and not really recovered, end quote. We have lost a lot of people, and we are seeing record vacancies. We've lost people because of the pandemic. People have passed away, but we've also lost people because of the end of freedom of movement and the need for visas. You combine that with really early retirees and lots of lingering health problems, thanks to Tories underfunding the NHS, adds more to these problems. We can train people to take on some of these roles, but you're just shuffling people around. But you need more people. We have built a system where that's not happening. The Tory plan on childcare is another joke. They're so out of touch, they might as well be on Mars. But if we look at kind of this person's analysis, stagnant investment since 2016, so that's about the referendum, and our productivity has slowed down since the financial crisis. Really, that's the Tories, because they've been, financial crisis was, 2008, and the Tories have been in charge since 2010. So really, he's throwing a lot of shade here at the Tories, but doing it by stealth, I guess. He doesn't want to be politicised too much. Cabinet Minister Michael Gove blamed the Ukraine war and COVID for Britain's economic woes. As in, quote, we're dealing with the aftershocks of two significant events, end quote, he told the BBC. Asked if he accepted Britain had become a, quote, poorer country, end quote, he said, quote, everyone accepts if we hadn't had the war, ellipses, if we hadn't had the pandemic, we would have been in a position when the growth rate was significantly higher, end quote. And I think, the problem with this is everyone's been through COVID. Everyone's, suffering because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The fact that the government keeps managing to parrot these lines is beyond me, the global factor stuff. Every country had to deal with COVID. Some countries dealt with it better than others, but I guess their leaders did not say let their bodies pile high or expect the older people to sacrifice their lives for the economy, or say take it on the chin. With the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that has not impacted us as much as countries like Italy and Germany, who are both more reliant on Russia for energy and trade. So yet those two countries have reached their pre-pandemic levels in terms of GDP, whilst we have not. I wonder why that could be. If actual journalists like Laura could have grilled the Tories on this point instead of people from the OBR, we might get somewhere. But I guess she leaves her journalism skills for the people who are not members of the Tory party. But, fact remains, we are a global outlier. We are a G7 outlier. And the question is, why are we the outlier? What's different to us from the other G7 members? In December, the Centre for European Reform found that Brexit cost the UK a staggering £33 billion in lost trade, investment and growth. The CER estimated the tax loss from Brexit to be around £40 billion, so that's actually higher than Test and Trace, which is mad. Given that Test and Trace cost us £32 billion. Brexit has cost households more than £5.8 billion in higher supermarket bills, pushing up UK food prices by 6%, a study by the Centre of Economic Performance also found in December. And we'll be discussing that 6% figure in a bit before I get absolutely attacked by people. I think the figure for food inflation is higher. When you look at the UK versus the euro or even the dollar, the pound is lower than it was a few years ago, especially if you look at post-2016. That in itself will push up the cost of food because we import a lot of food. But also some of the input products needed for UK farming would have to be imported, things like fertiliser, which you'd be relying on other countries for, which I think it would be done in dollars. So I think that 6% figure is not right. I've seen some analysis to say it is far higher. It's not the most scientific research, but hopefully it will give us an idea of what we are looking at. This is, someone's Asda shop, which we'll look at in a moment, this year versus last year. It's from someone called Julie McHamish, so shouts out to them, and I'll leave a link to their Twitter in the description. When we look at these products, it's well over the 10% mark. I think the 6% figure is from the London School of Economics, which looked at food inflation back in, 2021. This further adds to my concern over what exactly is the Bank of England using to calculate inflation, because clearly they're not using the right metrics. Feels very political to me what they're doing, but, what isn't nowadays? But let's look at those numbers. So this is from their Twitter. So you can see that's their handle up there. And you can see, in terms of a lot of these products, Asda olive oil has gone up by 70%. Asda pitted black olives, 67%. What's going on with olives? I'm lost. Cucumbers up by 67%. I'm not familiar with, are these the kind of marquee products when they talk about Asda's grower selection? But you can see here, some of this stuff's gone up 60%, 55%, 43%, 19%. We go further down. The only thing that hasn't gone up significantly is Maryland cookie chips twin pack, which is 0%. But the cookies, they're not the same quality as they were a few years ago, I'll be honest. But cornflakes gone up by 5%, and they're the marquee brand as well. And you look at everything else has gone up. This person's shop's gone up by above 10%. So for people to be citing a 6% figure, it just doesn't seem to make sense. And this is March 2022 versus March 2023. I wonder what the numbers would look like for March 2021 and March 2020. That would be quite interesting. But we don't have access to those figures. But you can see a significant increases in certain products, and people think 20p here, 30p there isn't a lot, but when you look at the percentage increases, they are stark. The cost of that olive oil has gone up by 70%. It's nearly double. It's just wild when you look at some of these figures here. And of course, you've always got to be wary of percentage increases because the Tories use them for nefarious purposes. But when you look at it in the context of food, it's just maddening, absolutely maddening. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.